We're going to do some current events. Some interesting things have developed, and I think we need to expose it a little bit about what's going on in our society, obviously. I was interviewing Tom today, and we were talking about furries, believe it or not. Furries. Believe it or not, I mean, that school in Utah, the kids actually protested against it. It's actually made national news, and these crazy teachers and administrators were just contributing to it. And we were talking about that, and then what the interesting thing, before we get into what I'm going to talk about tonight, is that there's a connection with these. Well, it's with the transgender, the identity thing, and now people that can identify as animals. But as you know, with the transgender movement, there's the pedophilia movement, and then when you look at the furries, there is a sexual thing with adult furries. Are you aware of that? Okay, so it's amazing. Tom and I were talking about this, that when you see all these different perversions, they put it on the kids, but it always ends up in pedophilia, which is a weird, sexual misconduct that's off the chart. So like Ron DeSantis had actually put out a law in Florida. They would have FurryCon, like Comic-Con or something like that, and these adult people who think they're animals and dress like animals, they forbid children to go there because it was so sexualized. And so they passed a law in Florida to prevent that. And the weird thing about this whole thing is, just like the transgender, the grooming of kids, and now you got the furries, there's always this sexual connection to it with pedophilia. It's weird, man. And you know about these elites doing the pedophiling thing, and the Epstein Island and all that stuff. It's like it goes along with this elite mentality, really. It's weird. So anyway, catch that if you get a chance. We're going to have that edited and up pretty soon. But I talked to Tom about that. It's a weird deal going on. It's like the transgender movement. It's messing up people's minds. Talking about messing up people's minds is the colleges, obviously. And it's really blown out of control, especially in New York. Really out of control, right? And I talked a little bit about it in the first hour, but we need to get to the root of it, and I want to show you some of the roots of why it's happening. What we understand that this is not just simply student-led in New York, okay? Here's Washington Free Beacon. Columbia law students tell Jewish classmates police presence on campus makes them feel unsafe. Well, how do you do? I don't know what to tell you. The Jewish students are getting threatened, you idiots. I want to tell these other Columbia law students, what do you want? What do you want? Jewish people to get killed? What do you want? But anyway, they're just crazy. So anyway, as you know, you probably heard this, Republican senators demand Biden officials protect Jewish students, restore order at the colleges, and really it's happening at NYU and Columbia. These people have went nuts, right? And I've showed you the arrests. I want to show you what's recently happened at Columbia. This stuff is still going on, okay? Watch this video, and you think you're like in Iran, okay?
Wow, that's a good one. You're what? You're Hamas?
Yes, we're all Hamas, eh? We don't want no Jews state! We don't want no Jews state! We remember 48!
Anyway, I will keep revealing the truth about all of you.
Why are you so close? What up?
Put up.
People I know who don't even go to Columbia, honestly, a lot of people who are here aren't students. They've stuck in, which I think is completely fine and we accept. I know people who are helping people sneak. I don't know if I should be saying that.
Yo, remember? Hey, remember the 7th of October. Never forget the 7th of October. That will happen. Never forget the 7th of October. Not 1 more time. Not 5 more times. Not 10 more times. Not 100 more times. Not 1,000 more times. Not 10,000 times. Ready? 7th of October is about to be every day. Every day. 7th of October is going to be every day for you. It will be. You're going to see.
All you do is colonize. That's it. Who is here first? We were here first.
Let's go. Yes, please.
Make sure Johnny and Dave are good. Make sure they're good.
They closed all the other exits.
Something like that. But we're out. We're out.
Okay, so that goes on and on and on. I feel, the first thing, who sends their kid to Columbia University? You got to be crazy to send a kid to Columbia University. They have suspended classes. I wish they would have done that when I was there, because apparently no finals or whatever. They suspended classes for the rest of the semester. No one has to go back. They're done, because this has turned into a riot. Now, here's what I want to make the point to you. This is not a student-led opposition. There's something nefarious behind it because it's happening in NYU and Columbia. And you're saying, why Columbia? Why NYU? Because it's real simple. The two schools are in the center of Manhattan. They're in New York City, where the most media in our nation is in New York, okay? And so if you're going to make the most impact, you have to do it in New York City or LA or something like that. You have to have a mega media center. And so this is why this is happening. And it's not happening in, Wyoming. It's not happening in Idaho, okay? It's happening where the most press is. And so it's not an accident it's happening at Columbia. It's not an accident it's happening in NYU. Anyway, GOP lawmaker says, I have a bill to defund Columbia. They're allowed educational environment comparable to Gaza. He's right. It's not going to happen because these people are all protected, but good for him to even say that. Columbia prof, our faculty jumped into to help the protesters after ignoring plight of Jewish students. That's true. So Columbia is known for the most radical professors you could possibly imagine, because if you remember, the Frankfurt School came out of Germany, and they were Fabian socialists. They left Germany because of Nazi Germany, and they actually came to America, and where they centered was at Columbia University. So for a long time, they hid at Columbia, and then they were in Teachers College there as well. And they stayed underground. And this happened from the 40s to the 50s to the 60s to the 70s to even to this day. So many of the radicals that were trained in our country, were trained at Columbia. And these Fabian socialists were there. Fabian socialists are different than communists. Communists will basically stick a gun to your head and force you to do it. Fabian socialists are going through brainwashing techniques. And some of the brainwashing techniques is being obviously what you see all through culture. So wokeism and political correctness. I remember my first year at Columbia, they sat us down in a class, and we sat in a circle, and they're going to teach us how to be politically correct. Yeah, it didn't teach me anything. It just teach me to be mad about them. But I remember that most of the students there were just absorbing it like idiots, just useful idiots. They just went along with it, right? So it's been a long history of it. So what I'm trying to say is, this is a strategic point to do this at, this location, because you have the professors that will back it, and yet even though Columbia has a large Jewish population that attends there, very large, because obviously Long Island and Manhattan and the surrounding boroughs is a lot of Jewish people. So you have LA and New York being the highest concentration of Jewish people in the United States. So there's a high concentration of Jewish people that attend Columbia. For this to happen with that amount of students on campus, with these, this is kind of shocking, but it doesn't shock me in so much as because the radical professors that are there and the radical professors that they hire. So it's just like off the chain. So it doesn't shock me that they're jumping in and helping the protesters. Now, here's a good interview with Dershowitz and how DEI and wokeism is affecting these colleges and universities. I want you to hear from him and listen to what he says, okay?
About Alan Dershowitz, professor emeritus at Harvard University and author of War Against the Jews, How to End Hamas Barbarism. Professor Dershowitz, you know more about this subject than me, probably than almost anybody on the planet. I'm giving this Columbia president a little bit of a plus because she seems to have done something. But more importantly, what do you think, sir?
Well, she gets about a B- with grade inflation because she hasn't dealt with the problem. The core problem is DEI, diversity, equity, and inclusion, and intersectionality. These dominate universities today, and they're the sources of anti-Semitism. Let me tell you a story about one professor. His name is Joseph Massad. He is the one who praised Hamas on October 7th and said what they did was a wonderful thing. He is pro-Hamas. I opposed his tenure before he got tenure. I told the university that he was a third-rate academic. He had called on a Jewish student as a teacher, and when the student said and started talking, Joseph Massad, the professor, said, "You seem to have an Israeli accent. Are you Israeli?" He said, "Yes." He said, "Can't speak in my class unless you're prepared to say that Israel has committed war crimes." This is a professor. He hadn't gotten tenure yet. And Columbia University gave him tenure, not just his being anti-Israel, but precisely because of it. They wanted anti-Israel professors on the faculty because they were getting funding from anti-Israel countries. This is a much deeper problem. This goes back years and years and years. And until and unless universities like Harvard and Columbia get rid of, uproot, completely from top to bottom, the DEI bureaucracy and the intersectionality bureaucracy, this will continue and it will destroy every major university in America and turn American universities into the same third-rate institutions that Professor Joseph Massad is as a third-rate scholar. So boy, does she have work to be done. And some of it's going to be difficult because her faculty won't support her. Many of her students won't support her. The problem is a lot deeper than what we see on television today. What we see on television today is the tip of the iceberg. But don't call these people pro-Palestinian. They are anti-Palestinian. They're pro-Hamas. Hamas has been destroying the Palestinian cause. They hang gays. They murder dissidents. They They discriminate against women. They caused the death of all these people by using human shields. So these pro-Hamas people are not pro-Palestinian. They're anti-Jewish, they're anti-Palestinian, and they're anti-decency.
Professor Dershowitz, am I completely wrong? I look at this and I say to myself, you've got these college presidents in big-time schools. You've got the boards of directors who are really running the show. They are afraid to label these anti-Semitic statements as hate crimes. Just say they're a hate crime. I mean, am I wrong about that?
No, you're 100% right. A friend of mine who was the president of a major college said to me, the one criteria that doesn't exist for being the president of a university or a member of the board is courage. These folks have no courage, no guts. They want everybody to love them, and they can't do that. This is a time for making hard decisions, and universities are not good at making those kinds of decisions. So what we're going to see today and tomorrow is universities being responsive to Congresswoman Stefanik, who's done a great job in exposing this, and they'll do one or two things. But the deep problem of continuing to have a bureaucracy which is against equality in favor of equity, which is the opposite of equality. You judge people based on their ethnicity and based on their race and religion. They won't do anything to dismantle the real problems here and to stop hiring people because of their hatred of Israel or even the numbers of students. When I was teaching at Harvard 10 years ago, Harvard Jewish students were 23% of the student body. Today, they're 9%, less than they were when they had quotas, anti-Jewish quotas. So the DEI bureaucracy is anti-Semitic, not only in effect, but in intent. And until it's gotten rid of, we're going to see this problem get worse and worse and worse. And no president is prepared to take on this bureaucracy. I spoke at Cardozo Law School, Yeshiva University Law School, and I spoke against DEI. And the dean of the law school said, we're doubling down. Everybody has to support DEI. DEI is part of what Cardozo Law School is about. She is part of the problem, not part of the solution. And many of these administrators are the cause of the problem. And today just demonstrates what's going to happen to American universities. Jewish students today are not safe at many American universities.
Well put, sir. Yeah. Well put, Professor Alan Dershowitz. We appreciate it.
So he's right. They're not safe. And one of the things is the universities have been piping in people from the Middle East to go there. And like I think I mentioned before, they pay full tuition and they get grants and money from the Middle East as well. So a lot of these colleges and universities have piping in these types of students that hate Israel, that are Muslim, and this is not shocking what you see when you have this. The problem then is this is going somewhere. No one's going to be able to reform this. You understand, Columbia's gone, Harvard's gone, Stanford's gone. They're gone. UCLA is gone. They're completely anti-Semitic. UCLA had a thing where they had a piñata of Netanyahu and beating it to death. I'm not going to send my kid to UCLA. I have to be crazy to send my kid to UCLA. When the administration and the principals will not put this down. They're just letting it happen. And I like what Tom Cotton said. Biden should revoke visas of students breaking laws in anti-Israel protests. He's totally right. Kick them out of here. Get them out of there. We don't want these types of people in our country. Why do we let them have student visas? Get them out. Expel them. Well, it's not going to happen. Here's NYU students. I want you to again, look at this, but I want you to understand this is not just simply student-led, okay? Keep that mindset. I'm going to show you something in just a bit.
NYU, where we are watching this walkout happening in real time. This new demonstration is happening after more than 100 arrested in New York City last night. We saw a growing number of protests emerge and erupt all over the city. The group here is a group called the NYU Palestine Solidarity Coalition. They're calling on students at New York University to walk out of their classes today following the anti-Israel protests that unfolded there last night. They're posting on Instagram for students to walk out of their classes at 1 p.m. Eastern time. We are obviously now in that hour, and head to Washington Square Park, which is just a couple blocks there, to reflect, debrief, and strategize, according to their post. Let's bring in Arkansas Republican Senator Tom Cotton on the breaking news as we do watch these pictures. Senator, what are your thoughts as you see this happening, and now to think you've got classes canceled at Columbia University? I mean, why can't they get a hold of this situation?
Well, Sandra, I gather there were about 100 people arrested last night at NYU. It seems like there may need to be even more arrests today. These university presidents need to ask the mayor and the chief of police in New York to send in New York City's finest to arrest anyone who's breaking the law, who's squatting on private property when they've been told to disperse, who's harassing or intimidating Jewish students in a nascent pogrom, and demand that students actually do what they're supposed to do on campus, which is go to school. And by the way, any of these students who are foreigners here on visas should immediately have their visas revoked by the Biden administration and be promptly deported. They have no right to be here. They certainly have no right to be here spewing anti-Semitic and anti-Israel filth.
Okay, we know it's up to the universities to call the police on their campuses, right? Private universities. However, there were students, we had one sitting on set here, two I should say, on set here yesterday, Jewish students who they feel so threatened, their rabbi on their campus at Columbia is telling them to go home. They see the only solution to bring in the National Guard. Do you think that's needed?
Well, Sandra, first off, it's not the university's prerogative whether or not the NYPD come onto their campus. It would certainly be welcome if the university presidents and their police forces would cooperate with the NYPD. But New York City has an obligation to enforce the law and to protect innocent civilians like those Jewish students. If there's a crime being committed in a private home, the police have every right to go into the home to stop the imminent crime from being committed. So they certainly have every right as well. And yes, I do agree that if Eric Adams won't send the NYPD to protect these Jewish students, if Kathy Hochul won't send the National Guard, Joe Biden has a duty to protect these Jewish students from what is a nascent pogrom on these campuses. These are scenes like you've seen out of the 1930s in Germany. They should never be witnessed or tolerated here in America in 2024.
Well, the group that we are seeing organize the current walkout that's on your screen here, and for our viewers to know, Washington Square Park, New York University, this group that's organizing this is demanding, quote, to end all war profiteering and investment in genocide, a complete academic boycott of Israel, it reads. The removal of NYPD on campus and that NYU must protect free speech on campus and provide full amnesty to all students and faculty penalized for their pro-Palestinian activism. So let me ask you this, who's behind this?
Well, Sandra, that's a very good question. It's something the Department of Justice should look into.
He didn't say, but we do know who's behind it. We do know who's behind it. Like I told you, it's not student-led. So Caroline Glick exposed this just recently this week of who's behind it. And you'll be a little shocked about who's behind all of this. She interviewed Vahid Besti. He's an Iranian, and they discussed how the Iranian Revolutionary Guard Corps was behind the April 15th traffic stoppages, the port closures, the bridge blockers throughout the Western world, and is behind a lot of this student stuff that's going on here. So, like I told you, it's not an accident. It's happening in New York and happening at high-profile schools and is being instigated by the Iranian Revolutionary Guard Corps. Not students. The students are just useful idiots, right? They don't even, they're stupid. They don't even know what's going on. They don't even know the history. So somebody's behind this, and we now find out it's Iran. It's the Persians that are behind this. And they're doing their propaganda through all of this and through Western society, whether it's London, whether it's New York, or wherever. They're actually the ones pushing this propaganda and have the money to back this. Now, it's not just Iran, it's a few more others. So I want you to listen just a little bit to Caroline Glick interview this guy, just for a moment, and then I want to go to the other source of what's causing this.
But first I want to talk, because I think it's a key issue that really hasn't been discussed that much, which is your revelation. So I just want to read from your quote, from your tweet. You presented this document, and hopefully my producers are going to be able to put it up. It's in Farsi, so it's all Greek to me. But It said you wrote top secret letter by the Deputy Commander-in-Chief and head of the IRGC's intelligence organization addressed to the Deputy Cultural and Psychological War Operations of the IRGC, titled Supporting and Encouraging Palestinian Movements Towards the Political Isolation of the Zionist Regime, in which the global movement on the 15th of April is the contents of the letter. The IRGC is very clearly organizing and promoting these actions aimed at destroying our modern society, all while our politicians continue to appease them, placing our value of stability and public order under great jeopardy. When I have said from day one that the October 7th brutal massacre by Hamas received its order from Tehran, this is what I mean. When I have said from day one that the IRGC are behind the weekly protests in all major cities around the world under the pretext of supporting the Palestinians, this is exactly what I mean. The IRGC's infiltration within our societies is something that I have repeatedly warned the West about, and it is about time that we act and designate them as a terrorist group. So before we go into the designation and the West's refusal to designate, most of the West, I think the United States designated the IRGC as a terror group under Trump, but can you talk a little bit about, the April 15th riots were massive and they were worldwide. And so you're saying that there's this document here of the IRGC that's actually directing them, that it's their brainchild. Can you talk a little bit about that?
April 15 is just a drop of this ocean, which we've been exposing for years. Of course, this page, this document that I revealed, it showed the order, the direction, the support. It comes from Tehran, it comes from IRGC, and this is part of their PR war. Iranian regime are expert in PR war, in infiltrating in our society and destroy it from within. This is their strength. So because they have been working on this over 35 years, they invest a lot on this. They got different groups, they have different so-called charities, religious centers, mosques, which they working on these different programs. When the October the 7th occurred, about few days after that, I was constantly in all my interviews was saying, follow the money, see where the money comes from in order to organize this big demonstration, especially in London and different cities of Europe. It's got to that point, and I was repeating that, just this one sentence. I was repeating this, I'm inviting our intelligence to follow the money, because this is not our job. It might be 200 links, maybe 100 links to get to the core of the money, to see where the money comes from. It's got to that point, which is the supreme leader of the Iranian regime, Ali Khamenei, in one of his speech, it was 6 weeks after October the 7th, he couldn't tolerate it anymore. He said, an idiot in London constantly accusing us for holding this demonstration in London and in different cities of Europe. Maybe it's the branch of IRGC in London or Paris organizing this. This is what he's exactly said, and Times, the newspaper of Times, quote him, after that. So I know this regime, I know their tactics, I know their principle, I know their strategy, I know how it works, I know their ins and outs. April 15th is not riot, is not calling for demonstration, is calling for war, is declaration of war against all our values in West. They're calling it themselves, not us, economical blockage. So what does that mean to us? And in this letter, they emphasizing we have to give the support, as much as support we can, to organize this event, this riot, in order to isolate the Zionist regime in Israel, because our PR war is being really effective. What do they mean? But our PR war and our psychological war was very effective. That means the propaganda machine is being really effective. So look what they done. They turned the terrorist group who they committed the 7 October of massacre, this bunch of savages, this bunch of terrorists and rapists, into the victim. So that's what do they mean when they say our work and our psychological work.
So you can watch the rest of the interview on YouTube with him, but he goes on and says, look, if the West doesn't wake up, this is what they're doing. They are doing through propaganda. They're using organizations in America and in the West to isolate Jewish people. That's what's happening on Columbia. That's what's happening on all these college campuses. The Iranian regime is the one doing this and funding this. Then the Washington Free Beacon comes out and says left-wing dark money behemoth behind bail fund for Free Palestine bridge blockers. Okay? This is what the article says. So it's not just this guy with Caroline Glick, it's the Washington Free Beacon saying this. Scores of Free Palestine protesters across the United States took to the streets Monday to block major airports, highways, and bridges. Those who are arrested will receive bail money and legal support from a left-wing dark money behemoth funded by guess who? But I thought George Soros is Jewish. The protests, which took place in dozens of U.S. cities, including San Francisco, Chicago, New York, Philadelphia, were organized by A15 Action. Okay, I looked them up on the internet. They do exist. A newly formed group that worked to coordinate a multi-city economic blockage on April 15th in solidarity with Palestine. George Soros funded. The group's website directs users to bail and legal defense fund hosted through Act Blue, the Democratic Party's online fundraising juggernaut. The Democrats. Those who donate to the fund, the Act Blue page says, are sending money to the Community Justice Exchange, which provides money bail, court fees, and fines, and other legal services to community-based organizations that contest the current operation and function of the criminal, legal, and immigration detention systems. The exchange is a project of the Tides Center, a left-wing dark money network funded by George Soros, Pierre Omidyar, and other liberal billionaires. Oh. So you got the IRGC with billionaires, the Democratic Party's online fundraising juggernaut, Act Blue. So who's behind all of this? Here's A15 economic blockage. A coordinated economic blockade to free Palestine. The proposal states that in each city we will identify and blockade major choke points in the economy, focusing on points of production and circulation with the aim of causing the most economic impact. As did the port shutdowns in recent months in Oakland, California, Melbourne, Australia, and just a few examples. So they're doing this to hurt the West economically for supporting Israel. Oh. Here's the participating cities. This is very well coordinated. This is not student-led. You understand where I'm going with this? This is not student-led. This is highly organized and well-funded. Okay? So these are not some crazy kids at Columbia getting out of control. These are billionaires piping in money to this, to be anti-Semitic and isolate Israel. And George Soros, didn't he help the Nazis when he was a young kid? He turned on his own people. Yeah, he's doing the same thing again, along with these other globalist elites. Here's Act Blue's website. Says its fundraising platform is only open to groups whose work is not at odds with values including, but not limited to, social equality, women's rights, LGBTQ whatever rights, racial justice, diversity, freedom of speech, yeah right, disability rights, and respect for scientific inquiry, discovery, and data, which is all wokeism. Which in wokeism, Israel is the bad guy. Okay, right? Israel's the bad guy in wokeism, along with Christians. Tide Center. Now, I think Glenn Beck exposed the Tide Center a long time ago. So that should be familiar to you. The Tide Center houses a variety of left-wing groups, including Black Lives Matter Global Network Foundation. Wait a second, I thought Black Lives Matter got exposed. Yeah, they're a Marxist organization. They're a left-wing organization. They're not for black lives. That's just a front name. That's the last thing they can concern themselves with is black lives. It's actually a Marxist organization. And they're involved. It funnels millions of dollars to wealthy donors to these groups. The Tide Center, for example, fiscally sponsors, guess who? The Arab Resource and Organizing Center, which last year organized a direct action protest that attempted to block a U.S. military ship bound for Israel from leaving port in Washington. It also sponsors the Adala Justice Project, one of America's most vocal Hamas apologists. This is all coincidence. This is no way could all of these be tied together. Brandon, this is just coincidence that these all line up. Do you understand what you're seeing? This is one of the most nefarious ventures against Jewish people, and it is well funded and well organized. It is not a bunch of college students doing this. And that's for another time, the flurries. Flurries, yeah, there you go. So you can listen to that whole interview that Caroline Glick has with him, and it just keeps exposing more and more about Iran. So you have Iran, then you have the Soros Foundations and the Democratic Party, or at least their fundraising aspect, which is just mega fundraising. This Act Blue thing, or this other 15 thing, Tide Center, dude. You are watching Nazi Germany develop right in front of your very eyes. As organized as the Nazis were, this is that organized. But I'm going to tell you something. It's better organized. It has more money. And it's not just regional, it's global. Because I showed you all the countries and all the cities that are involved. And we're talking about Australia and Canada and all over the West, basically. So they're isolating Israel in the West and demonizing her to the American population, to the European population, to the Australian population, to Canada and everything. They're demonizing her systematically. So I'm a little taken aback because this is not two kids down, doing this. This is big. This is Luciferian. Okay, this is totally Luciferian. This is satanic. Because what you're watching is the development of a genocidal mindset towards Jewish people. And I'm really shocked that I'm seeing this. So, in response to this, I think we all better wake up to how sinister this actually is and how important it is to stand with the Jewish people. Now, I'm working out some things right now behind the scenes. I've reached out to the local rabbis here, and I've even offered, I said, look, man, I know things are getting bad. Do you need security? And the one rabbi that responded, he goes, yes, I want to meet with you, and I want to talk about that. I said, because we can provide security for you. I've reached out to the rabbis here in town, and usually I don't get any reaction, and I understand why, but this one rabbi reached back, and he says, we do. And I'm like, okay, I'll go, well, let's meet, and I said, we'll talk about your security needs and see what I can do as far as our church is helping you. That's the first time anyone's ever expressed that. I told Olivier Melnick, who's coming to Israel with me in another month, I said, he actually responded and wants security. And he goes, that's big, Brandon. For him to say that they want help, means that they're under some type of duress currently right now. And I said, well, Olivier, that's in Bakersfield. We're not in LA or New York. That's here. And he goes, yeah. I said, Olivier, what you said is coming I think it's here already. I think it's here. And like I've told you before, what we're working with Olivier is to create a mechanism within remnant churches that can help protect Jewish people. So behind the scenes, we're working. I've told you this before. It's still there. We're working on it, and we Olivier is behind a lot of that. It's not public. It's not public, but we are one of the supporting churches that if that ever time goes down, we're going to act. We're going to act to protect our Jewish people here in Bakersfield. We're going to do what we can for the rabbis and the Jewish congregations here, synagogues, because we're not sitting this one out. You see how sinister this is. There's going to come a day, if the rapture doesn't happen anytime soon, you and I, we're going to have to stand for the Jewish people here locally. We're going to have to stand and protect them in some form or fashion. And just like you see in that Colombia, right? Yeah, that crazy genocidal mindset, we're going to have to stand face to face with that. So the reason I'm exposing you so that you can prepare. You can prepare mentally, you can prepare emotionally, you can prepare spiritually for what is coming if the rapture doesn't happen anytime soon. This whole anti-Semitism, you already know it's part of God's plan. He's not causing it, but he's allowing it, right? Because why? It's the same reason, like I told you on Sunday, what he's doing to Jacob. He isolated Jacob, didn't he? And then he wrestled with him. God is allowing this isolation to happen to Israel for a reason. Now, again, we're going to help Israel in the nation. We're doing all kinds of things behind the scenes, and I'll tell you more about that later on. But I want you to know that we are going to stand with the Jewish people. We're going to help them, and we need that help from you on a personal level. We need you to be able to stand for Israel. We need you to be able to say, I'm going to support them, because at some point we're going to ask you to protect them physically. Okay? That's where it's going if the rapture doesn't happen anytime soon. So I want you to prepare for that. And I know probably everyone in this room would have no problem doing that, saying, sign me up, I'm there. But I need to prepare you, because what I just showed you right now is sinister, absolutely sinister. All right. I got to get you out of here. So with that in mind, I'll keep you updated on Israel and what's going on there and how to help. But let's end in a word of prayer. Father, thank you, Lord, for all that you're doing in our lives. We don't want to be misprioritized with you. We want you to be the priority of our lives, obviously, Father. And in doing so, that means to be obedient to you in all ways, even in protecting Israel, even in supporting your Jewish people, because we know you have a plan and a purpose. So, Father, give us courage, give us the guts and the steel in our soul to be able to stand in the face of evil that we're seeing in this world, Father. We pray now in Jesus' name, amen.